we've ended up in a place where there is really no shared understanding of the event. There's no national mourning.
Let's go on a deep dive.
This week saw the 5th anniversary of the January 6th assault on the Capitol, which is rightly and legally called an insurrection, although I understand that there is some disagreement across the political spectrum on that. And we wanted to spend just a few minutes talking about the lasting legacy, if there is one, of January 6th, because the public perception, the way we treat this politically, has radically evolved over the last 5 years. And you can see it in the political activities that went around this anniversary. There was the launch of a new White House website with ominous black and white images of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and members of the January 6th committee, offering a false narrative of what happened that day, labeled those who stormed the Capitol patriotic Americans. Oh, I see. Meanwhile, despite a law that says that there's supposed to be a bronze marker legally mandated by Congress, again, that would honor those who protected the Capitol, police officers, from the worst attack it had seen since it was burned in the War of 1812. He has avoided that. He is not following the law, and he has not put up that plaque, which again is not taking sides here. It is just honoring the 140 police officers who were injured in defending the People's House that day. Democrats were relegated to the basement of the Capitol to hold a mock hearing to mark the anniversary of the event. That's notable in its own right. So we've ended up in a place where there is really no shared understanding of the event. There's no national mourning. This isn't like September 11th. This isn't like, hey, we were attacked. This can continue to unite us, even if we don't like what subsequently happened after that. So with all of that backstory in place, what is, Matt, the lasting legacy, if any, of January 6th?
Yeah. First, I think it's important to talk about Mike Pence here. I think it's important to set up how far we've gone from the very foundations of our country. America depends on principled leaders doing the right thing at the right time. I mean, without that, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, everything else is just a piece of paper. I think where Mike Pence should really get his due is he showed that same level of commitment in the face of immense pressure during the certification of the ballots. He took his oath of office seriously. He took his job as an American, as a vice president, as someone who is trying to advance our country along seriously. And I think the fact that Trump tried to rewrite that, because on that same website you talked about, he talked about him more as a criminal, as someone who stood in the way of America. The true story of Mike Pence, whether you agree with him on policy or anything else, he should be seen as an American hero, as a patriot. Maybe it's not Mount Rushmore type stuff, but what he did is just as important as those people who signed the Declaration of Independence 250 years ago.
I want to endorse that. I agree as a Democrat. And I agree politically with Mike Pence on virtually nothing. But I can tell you that people who are a lot further to the left than I am, I've had on my show over the years, who I've talked with over the years, we all agree that the Republic came within a few strands of nerve fiber in Mike Pence's spine. And he deserves the praise that you just gave him.
And I think too many people in my party, too many Republicans who are out there speaking too much want to call him a traitor. Now, I think the dirty secret is most Republicans out there still look at him as a true conservative, as a hero, as a patriot. The second point that I think is important to understand here is that if this is not the father of the lawfare movement, this is at least a distant cousin. The idea, right, that we could fundamentally change how we view government, to say that there's an active approach inside government that is attacking us, that just fermented for 40 years, that just created a further distrust. That's a real tragedy too. I think that's a lasting legacy that comes out of it. Truth has been destroyed by those who want to minimize what's real and recreate an alternate history. And what I find interesting is for my Republican friends who say, look, they weren't protesting, they were walking in line, they were orderly. No, like they disobeyed an order to not enter the Capitol. Going back to Minnesota, it's the same argument you're making on why this ICE agent was justified in his actions, because somebody else disobeyed. You can't have this both ways. And that's the next legacy of January 6th, is that we want to gloss over the illegality of what happened. I am sure some people just got caught up in the moment, but that doesn't change what they did was illegal. And so it is a tragedy in American history.
To me, the lasting legacy, the thing that history will have to judge, is the pardons. It's pretty horrible that Trump chose to pardon all of the insurrectionists. I just hope people will never forget that the first pardon that was issued by Mitch McConnell, it was the refusal of the leader of Republicans in the Senate to convict Donald Trump in the second impeachment. If Mitch McConnell had shown the same backbone that Mike Pence did, had rallied other Republicans to go with him, don't forget that 10 House and 7 Senate Republicans voted against Trump in that impeachment. 7 Senate Republicans. We were not that far away. If Senate Republicans, rallied and led by Mitch McConnell, had said, this is such an obvious case of an impeachable offense, he should be convicted, then we wouldn't be living through the nightmare that we're living through now. Your party would be healthier. America would be healthier. We'd all be a lot happier. But they didn't. And I don't want to absolve fully the role of the American people in all of this, because we're the ones who issued the second pardon. We're the ones who collectively voted Trump back in. We made the decision with all the evidence laid out in front of us that we were going to memory hold this and move on and bring him back. We did that. It's a democracy. We did that. And we bear the responsibility for it. And so that is part of the lasting legacy, is Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans' shame and all of our collective culpability in allowing this to happen to ourselves. We did this to ourselves.
Yeah. But and if I may add one thing, and it's the amnesia of those Republicans now, this many years later, guys like Josh Hawley, who you see the video of him running scared through the Capitol, who now just casually dismiss that.
Yeah, Mr. Stands with a fist.
Yeah.
We all like your Breakfast Club impersonation. But look, to be potentially a little bit more positive on this, there are dead enders who are going to always carry a torch for the idea that this was, as Trump called it, a day of love, that these were peaceful visitors, that they were just marching, that all of this was a deep state illusion. There are people who will continue to buy into that conspiracy nonsense forever. But I also think that the number of people in America with a vested interest in buying into all of this against all fact, evidence, and reason is going to diminish over time, because they're the people who have a vested interest in their own kind of fortune and political survival because of the existence of Trump as a political force. As he diminishes, this force, I believe, will hopefully diminish as well. The number of people who buy into this will diminish as well. The need for Republicans to say this as a shibboleth, to give a nod to it, to protect Trump on it, that will decrease as well. And in the long run, with history as a judge, I think January 6th will stand out in all of the ways that you mentioned at the top. I think it will be remembered very differently in 20 years than it is right now. And that's what I'm hoping for.
And to close with one thing, the truth is, Republicans, everyday Republicans, it's what they feel. They don't see this as a day of love. They don't see this as something that was right. They are angered by this. We watched our country under attack. We watched our capital under attack. And we watched our president turn his back on the American people and hope that his vice president was hanged. American people, Republicans, they're not necessarily going to stand up against it yet. But I think, to your point, when we look at this 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're going to see a dramatically different view of this. And it's not my dose of hope, but I think that's where we are.